It's a weekend. I've been avoiding this topic since the controversy started because I didn't think it was that serious. I mean, I've been following it very closely personally, but I haven't talked about it on this channel because I do try to, when I talk on this channel, I try and focus myself on something important for the day. And that's not for the audience's sake, that's for my sake. It's because I want to force myself to focus on something important so that I actually use my brain at least once a day. And so I try to avoid talking about whatever the latest culture war outrage is. But in this case, the situation has escalated to the point to where I do want to highlight it on this channel. I do think that this is a somewhat significant moment, only because the Bud Light boycott, the Anheuser-Busch boycott, which I have not, I don't think even once mentioned on this channel, but has been a major news story for weeks now, has escalated to the point to where the Bud Light VP of marketing has finally been fired. Now, this is a very small victory, but coming from the right, who never is really able to claim scalps, at least not these days. I mean, not since the days of the Iraq War. I mean, that was the last thing that the right was able to really cancel people over. And that, of course, was backed by the deep state. Now you have the deep state backing everything against the right. And so, without any sort of institutional support, in fact, institutional opposition, it is noteworthy that the right was able to claim this woman's scalp. She was, of course, ex-CIA, as was her boss, the CEO of Anheuser-Busch. And so this is a completely CIA-captured company. It is led by the CIA. I wouldn't go so far as to call Anheuser-Busch a CIA cutout, but let's just say that the values of Anheuser-Busch would completely mirror that of the deep state. And so when their not-so-secret gay agenda finally became too overt for the blue-collar clientele of Anheuser-Busch to tolerate, there was a lot of skepticism as to whether or not the right would be able to really turn the screws on a major corporation like this. After all, Bud Light, despite being the most, what's a way of putting this, most popular, most widely sold, best-selling, we'll put it this way, the best-selling beer in America since I think like 1991, it is still just a one brand, which is a part of a great big multinational conglomerate of Anheuser-Busch InBev. And so even if they did a number on the Bud Light brand, would they really do damage and threaten Anheuser-Busch? No, I don't think that the goal was ever to drive Anheuser-Busch into bankruptcy. But if you're able to really give the most valuable beer brand in America a black eye, I think that that would send a message to corporate America. Now, to be clear, the bare minimum that Anheuser-Busch could have done in this situation was fire this VP of marketing. In fact, it should have been done immediately. And that would have been, to me, the bare minimum that they could have done to try and appease the mob. But they tried to get away with not even doing that, which was not smart, which is why I think this went on for so long. Because the podcast that this woman did, like one day before the Dylan Mulvaney controversy sprouted up, that interview in which she essentially said that she wanted to distance the Bud Light brand from its core customers, enraged, I would say at the very least, because not everybody's going to see it. People who actually saw it were probably in the hundreds of thousands. And those people became evangelists against Anheuser-Busch, encouraging their friends and neighbors, hey, get that Bud Light out of your hands, go buy a Yingling. And normally in these kinds of situations, the person who is seen, directly in charge, particularly someone who is highlighted by the public, by the boycotters themselves, and is held up as the great evildoer in this case, they did Bud Light a favor. They gave them a scapegoat. That's what the boycotters did by elevating this woman. Not to say that she's not to blame. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is, the boycotters could have targeted the Anheuser-Busch CEO and said, hey, this guy's a CIA spook. Look at the ad campaign he's pushing on us. He's got, he's trying to get a TikToker with an audience of primarily children to sell his beer. He's trying to get kids into alcohol. There's any number of ways, for example, that boycott could have gone. But no, they made this expendable feminist executive the face of the Bud Light boycott, and it took them this long to fire her. That's stunning, frankly, because it's such an easy thing to get rid of her. And officially, she's not even fired yet. She's just on a paid leave of absence, or just a leave of absence. I don't think they even said it was paid. And they've replaced her in the interim with a white male, which, hey, that's great. Now, if all Anheuser-Busch has to do is fire this woman and replace her with a white male in order to get their customers back, that's pretty darn cheap. That is not a big sacrifice at all. And I don't think it'll change anything about them. I think that they will just continue to go on doing as they do. Now, what my hope is that this firing has come so late into the cycle, after so many people have been poisoned against Anheuser-Busch, that they don't even notice, that people don't care about it. I think if this would have happened, like within 2 days, like in the first week, or even after the first week, at the end of the first week, that would have, I think, made a big difference in the minds of consumers. But at this point, I think that the boycott has gained a lot of momentum. For a lot of people at this point, think about it. In the modern 24-hour news cycle, 3 weeks is an eternity. And for a lot of people, they probably can't remember a time when Bud Light to them did not mean transgenderism. That whole company, in the minds of a lot of Americans, is Anheuser-Busch. And so it's going to take, I think, a long time for them to rebuild that brand. At least I hope. Hopefully people aren't, and I don't think that this is the case. If I were in Bud Light's position, I would not feel good, we finally fired this woman, now the heat will be off of us. I don't think that that'll be the case. I mean, just look at the reaction to that Budweiser Clydesdales ad. I saw no positive reaction. I saw nobody who said, you know what, I was upset with Bud Light after that whole tranny debacle, but after seeing this Clydesdale ad, I'm back to being a Bud man, and because they're real American like me and patriotic. No one had any reaction like that. So all they're doing is confusing their marketing. They did the Dylan Mulvaney thing was an overture to the wokesters. The she/her cans, the pronoun cans had all sorts of pronouns. I think even she/her. Those cans were an overture to the wokesters. And then you try and go back the other way and do a right-wing ad, a jingoistic ad even. I mean, personally, I thought that the Clydesdale thing, I thought it was a little creepy. I didn't like it personally. It was too much for me. I'm a right-winger, but I'm not a cultist for the flag. But anyway, in addition to insulting genuine right-wingers because they see it as pandering, the left is going to see that ad and go like, what is this? America. I don't like America. I thought that this beer was about, being gender fluid. And so they're just messing everything up. And if you look at all the other Anheuser-Busch brands, most of them, I think it's just Budweiser and Bud Light that they tried once to tweet, and then got their heads knocked back down. All the other brands, I believe, are not tweeting at all. They're just frozen since April 1st. So this is impacting the marketing of all of their brands. Sales-wise, it does look bad because the week ending April the 8th, we just got, word from the trades yesterday that apparently Bud Light sales were down 10%. And I think that's in terms of volume of beer was down 10%. The amount of product they sold, which is different than the amount of money spent. And it's also different from market share. That's just the pure volume. How much beer did they sell in the week ending on April 8th? Which, by the way, the whole Dylan Mulvaney thing went down April 1st. That's why a lot of people thought it was an April Fool's joke at first. And it took a couple days for the whole boycott idea to get rolling. So this is the first week, and they had sales drop 10%. So my guess is that in the week, the next week, which would have been the week ending, what would that have been? April 16th. Yeah, because I think April 15th was on a Saturday. The week ending April 16th, I would think there could have been an even greater decline, an even greater drop-off. And after seeing, it was only after seeing the cold hard results, the data pouring in, at how the Dylan Mulvaney ad campaign directly impacted Bud Light sales, was this woman finally put on leave. So to me, it just shows that they're tone deaf. But personally, I mean, this was a really informative whole experience, because, you know, I would have never guessed that a marketing director for frat beer, you know, for redneck beer, for party beer, Bud Light, I would have never guessed that that would have been some Manhattanite ex-CIA agent. I mean, that just is like she was at a central casting. You know, and then you've got the CEO. His name, I mean, he was clearly some kind of like Northern Virginia chubbies wearing salmon-colored button-down shirt, white privilege boy. His name was Brendan, for one thing, and he was also a CIA agent. Again, something I would have never guessed with Anheuser-Busch. It's like, what does the CIA gain from infiltrating Anheuser-Busch? So, like, apparently, they thought that they could, you know, brainwash Bud Light drinkers into gender transitioning. So we'll see where it goes from here. I mean, I don't want to see the whole company destroyed necessarily, because there are a lot of, you know, good people who work for these companies. You know, I mean, we don't make a whole heck of a lot of stuff here in America. We don't do a lot of manufacturing, but one of the things we do is actually, you know, brew beer. And so these breweries are operated by, you know, normal working people who I don't want to see destroyed financially. And so this is a little different than most of the woke capital situations. You know, like Google. If Google went out of business tomorrow, I would not shed a tear. But, you know, something like Anheuser-Busch, they employ a lot of people. Think all the drivers, all the people who work in the breweries, all the lower level people. There's a lot of people who work for that company. You know, it's like saying, I don't want General Motors to go out of business either. Even if they are necessarily woke, I'd rather see General Motors turn back to the side of the good guys rather than just die as a woke company. Now, with that said, totally anti-bailout. When General Motors went bankrupt, I think they should have stayed bankrupt. That's their fault. The rest of us shouldn't have to bail them out because they employ some people. But all I'm saying is if they're a fine, you know, normal, profitable company, I'm not gonna cheer on their destruction and the unemployment of their workers. I would rather them turn the ship around. But unfortunately, they're not going to get rid of their CIA CEO. And as long as I know that Anheuser-Busch is controlled by the CIA, because once you're CIA, you're always CIA. You never leave the agency. I don't know how I would feel looking at their products. Not that I drink beer anyway, of course. You know, which, like so many people in conversations like this, you know, it would be very easy for me to say, I'm going to boycott Anheuser-Busch because, you know, I didn't buy any of their products to begin with. But I certainly know a lot of people do too. I mean, including, like, my parents. You know, they drink Anheuser-Busch products, and, you know, one of them was able to drop it. I don't think the other one really follows news enough to care. But most everyone I know, you know, like Gen Xers and Boomers, you know, those are the people I know who drink Anheuser-Busch products. I don't really know any young people who are Anheuser-Busch customers, which was part of this woman's, you know, plan. She's like, hey, we got to appeal to the millennials and to the Zoomers. And it's like, well, you know, I wasn't interested in Anheuser-Busch products before, but I'm really not interested in them now. So great job, at least appealing to this young person. Completely alienate Gen X and Boomers and not really do much in the way of attracting the young vote. So, all in all, the job is not finished. I hope people don't give up. You know, this is a small victory, but it's a sign of progress. Anheuser-Busch needs to do more than just get rid of this woman. They need to change who they are as a company, and they need to go back to being normal. You know, like you know, what would be to me a sign of progress if during remember how a couple years ago all these companies started celebrating so-called Pride Month. We spent an entire month celebrating one of the 7 deadly sins. Seems a little odd to me. To me, victory would be, or not victory, but things really moving in the right direction, a real sign of progress, would be if Bud Light and the other Anheuser-Busch brands do not change on, I forget what month is it? Is it June that they do this, where all the corporations have rainbow logos? If they drop the rainbow logo, that to me would be a sign of progress. But again, the Overton window is shifting so fast. I mean, 3 years ago, I don't think these corporations were doing the rainbow logos on Twitter. I don't remember that happening for an entire month. That's nuts. They never changed their logos to the Confederate flag-themed logos during Confederate History Month. Not that I recall. So in conclusion, Anheuser-Busch is still a woke company. And I think that while the right has not won, they're showing that they have some might. And we need to see how this is going to... I think that this is going to have an effect in the future, because I think that it will become more instinctual for people. I think that we're going to see more of this, not less of it. I don't think that this is an isolated incident. I don't think that that people just uniquely hate Dylan Mulvaney. I think that this was a straw that broke the camel's back kind of thing, and now people are agitated, now people are pissed, and they're going to be much quicker to do this with other companies. Not that I think that they will have learned that lesson yet. I think that it's going to happen to multiple companies more. You know, like I used General Motors as an example earlier. General Motors for Gay Pride Month, on the first day, they could put out some ad showing how, the Corvette, showing Dylan Mulvaney driving a Corvette. Okay, then everyone's going to make fun of your middle-aged midlife crisis guy who goes out and buys a Corvette, and start asking him, hey, when you getting bottom surgery, Dr. Danvers. And then we see Corvette sales drop, something like that. I think that this is going to have to keep happening. Because this is more significant than when Coca-Cola did something worse, when they told their employees to be less white. We did not see a boycott like this for Coca-Cola. There were people upset about it, but it was nothing like this. If we had the same news cycle with the Coca-Cola telling their employees to be less white, we would see a Coca-Cola boycott. And obviously Coca-Cola, a much bigger brand, I think, than Bud Light. So anyway, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.